Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Doom Tune Podcast. My name is Chris. I am your host, and today we're going to jump forward just a little bit, and we're going to talk to Rob and Kayla from the band Witch Mountain. I just saw them a few days ago at Club Red in Mesa, Arizona, and they were kind enough to give me some of their time. Sincerely appreciate it. Big shout out to Dropout Media, of course, and Matt Bacon, because he helped make that happen. And we got into it about several things, whether it's burgers or veganism or, I was really hungry. I talked about a lot about food. Yeah, I don't remember eating after that. Either way, also we talked a little bit of Led Zeppelin, a little Hendrix, a little Spirit. They did a great Spirit cover. We'll get into that and so much more. Just, you know what? Just sit back, relax. Just take it all in. We'll play a track. We'll hear what they got. It is fantastic. So here they are. This is Witch Mountain. We are outside in the back, actually, at Club Red in Mesa, Arizona, and I am with the members of Witch Mountain. Could you please both introduce yourselves?
I'm Kayla.
I'm Rob.
Awesome, and so this is kind of new ground. So, Kayla, how long have you been in Witch Mountain?
3 years.
3 years. And so let me ask you this, maybe this is a better question. Like, how did you all get started together?
Well, I auditioned for the band 3 years ago.
Okay.
But they've been a band for like 20-something years.
Last night, I was at a show, and I said, this guy comes up, and he sees some of the stuff I post, and he's like, the only reason I'm here is because you posted it. And I said, well, you got to come tomorrow night. Witch Mountain's going to be there. He said, really? Witch Mountain? He says, I had their demo from like way back, like in the 90s. And yeah. And so he was super excited. I hope to see him here. I don't even know. He might be out there right now. Wow. But I apologize. Go ahead.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, these guys have been a band for like 21 years.
Right.
And I'm 23, so
yes.
That's pretty fucking wild. Yeah, I auditioned like 3 years ago. I just saw on Facebook that they needed a new singer, and I asked if I could audition, and they let me, and they liked it. So,
well, your voice is amazing. It's powerful. I was saying off mic, I saw you last year in a different band, and it was fantastic.
Thank you.
I love the vocal ability you have, and it's clean, and you can mix it up, as I've heard on some of the tracks. So, how far into the tour are we here?
We're on day 5.
Day 5, and you've got say 20 dates left.
25, I think, or something. Yeah.
Is there any place that you're looking forward to hitting?
I personally just like to get out and hit all the places, that any of the major cities, some of the cities that we haven't been to.
Sure.
We've only played one show in Canada, and before we played in Montreal. I'm really looking forward to playing in Toronto and Ottawa
Right.
this time around. I'm looking forward to playing at St. Vitus Bar because it's one of my favorite venues in New York City.
Absolutely.
Atlanta, I lived in Atlanta when I was a kid, so I'm looking forward to going there. And I just genuinely like being in any city in the country, with the exception of a couple that I'm not going to mention and discriminate against.
As you're talking, I must be starving right now, because so you said Canada. I'm thinking, well, you can go to Tim Hortons.
Yeah.
And you said New York. I'm thinking I can go to Grace Papaya, and then I can go to Atlanta and I could stop off at the Varsity.
Yes.
I have no good food thoughts right now.
That's all right.
I must be starving. So tell me, if you don't mind, you mind if we go over some of the tracks for the latest release and maybe what some of the inspirations were?
Sure.
Okay, the first track, Midnight.
Well, musically, I guess it was for me. I bow at the altar of Jimi Hendrix.
I can see.
I think it's very reflective of my style. I'm a blues guy through and through. I love classic rock. I love all music, but when it came to that song, it's that E minor 9 chord that Hendrix uses a lot, and that was kind of the basis of it to begin with.
Right.
And then it's very bluesy, but I wanted to put some more kind of like angular notes in it that were more doomy and not so like kind of cut and dry blues.
Sure.
So I basically just kind of doomed up a blues riff.
Right.
And it reminded me of a song that Hendrix wrote called Midnight that was just an instrumental.
Yeah.
And when I recorded the demo and I finished the basic tracks for it, I looked up and it happened to be Midnight. So that was just like the working title.
Right.
So what happens is I usually just have a working title for songs and Kayla comes up with the rest. But for me, it's just like kind of a blues, doomy-based song. And it took on a new shape when Kayla actually wrote lyrics and did her melodies and harmonies. And so, actually, I don't know if he did very many harmonies in that song. But it was mostly the melody lines that for her vocals that kind of shaped it and made me kind of tweak it in ways.
Right.
And then, Nate inspired me to write a different ending to it, because I think we actually kind of played that song on one tour, but it wasn't really complete when we played it on that St. Vitus tour. We didn't end it the same way, but Kayla could probably tell you more about the actual inspiration behind the lyrics and stuff.
I would love to hear it.
Sure. So that one is about religion.
Okay.
So basically, there's one line in the song that says, "These are the cages we build. This is what we believe in. Let us sing you to sleep with all the lies we tell."
Nice.
So that's, just pretty straightforward.
Sure.
And just kind of talking about how, there have been people in my life. I mean, not to a drastic degree, but there have been people in my life who have kind of tried to push me toward, one religion or
Sure.
parents and guardians growing up. And I kind of just was reflecting on that. It's like kind of fucked up to me how we kind of force what we believe onto our kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's kind of what it's about.
It is a weird thing when somebody says, I'm this or I'm that, and they're like, well, how do you know you are? Well, my parents are. Like, well, how did they figure it out? Well, their parents were. I think there's that idea of just thinking for yourself.
Yeah.
But there was something I wanted to touch on, and you just reminded me when you said about the song Midnight. I heard it years ago. I used to live in New York on a station, K-Rock. And there was a show on Sunday nights. It was called Heavy Metal from Hell with Mark Didia, King of Dirt, Salt and the Slime, all that kind of stuff. And he played that song, that track, and I had it recorded on cassette and loved it, and I wore it out. Where is that track? What is that from? Because now that I have the internet, I could look it up and download it.
That's a posthumously released Hendrix track. It was an instrumental that may or may not have been completed because Alan Douglas, who basically took over the Hendrix estate,
right,
put out a bunch of stuff and brought musicians in to complete it. That song in particular, I think, was pretty much done with Mitch Mitchell and Hendrix and either Billy Cox or Noel Reddy, and I'm not sure who played bass, but
okay.
But that song is on a Polydor release that came out, I believe, in 1971 called War Heroes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you really listen to the riffs and stuff, it's quite similar. I mean, it's more of like a tip of a hat.
Sure. An homage, maybe?
To Hendrix more than anything, but it was very big inspiration, and it just happened to be at midnight when it got completed. So
that's perfect.
But yeah, I was surprised like we used that title, but it's pretty. It's a. I mean, midnight can bring so many things to the mind.
Right, right.
Just the term midnight. So, and you know how people are. Like, Kayla can write whatever she wants.
Sure.
As far as lyrics, but people are going to interpret it and take what they need from it that makes them feel good anyway, or anybody or any lyrics, you know, like
it's all open to interpretation.
Absolutely.
Now you were also, since you are such a fan of Hendrix, does that reflect your kit in any way? Is there anything that you're using specifically because of?
I incorporated the wah pedal in ways that most people don't do.
Right.
In a way Hendrix did that I noticed, where he would just click it on and use it for leads, just to give this extra treble boost, which annoys some people, but I tend to like it.
Okay.
And of course, like, you know, me being left-handed, he's left-handed, which I actually didn't know when I first started listening to Hendrix that he was left-handed.
Right.
That was just kind of a cosmic coincidence. It really was.
You know, geniuses are.
What's that?
Geniuses are left-handed usually.
Oh, okay.
Well, and you're speaking to another left-hander.
Oh, okay. There you go. Well,
yeah.
Spoken well.
We're in the minority for a reason.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
But, you know, as far as, like, gear and stuff, you know, I took kindly to right-handed Stratocasters strung left-handed.
Right.
You know, I feel like they're better suited for left-handed people. But more recently, I've been kind of like, I bought a Gibson SG, and I've been playing it more recently, actually.
Okay.
You know, fuzz pedals I got into. My sound's changed a lot in the last 20 years, but about 20 so years ago, when Witch Mountain first started, it was really about like non-master Marshalls, like the correct era, old vintage ones that like Hendrix would use,
right.
and these like purist fuzz pedals and stuff. But he played so fucking loud that it just didn't work when our first singer, who wasn't me, came along, because I'm like, people want to hear our singers that can actually sing, because I only sang out of necessity.
Okay.
You know? And so my sound's changed quite a bit. So I don't pull as much from Hendrix, other than I do use Marshalls and Fenders.
There you go.
You know, and I'm a purist when it comes to tone, and I like to use a little bit of phase and chorusing like he did, you know. But I'm obviously influenced by it. I mean, if people don't get that, you know, I've been told Jimmy Page and Tony Iommi, which is really true. But I mean, if you don't get that, like, I obviously worship Hendrix, and it's kind of
you know
there's something wrong with you. You know?
Yeah, and if you heard the band before, Loserfur,
yeah, he's obviously
he's all about it.
Yeah,
he's all about it.
Absolutely.
So let's go into the next track, "Mechanical World."
That's a cover.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who did the original?
Spirit.
Spirit. Man, I gotta check that out. Wait, is that the same? Are those the same people that did the song that was like the Stairway to Heaven? Yeah, yes, that one.
Yeah, they got a little bit of shit for supposedly ripping, or vice versa.
Yeah.
They sued Led Zeppelin. And there is a song that has a similar kind of like beginning to Stairway to Heaven, but I think it's just coincidence. I mean, all those guys are creating and borrowing stuff from each other back then, and stealing a lot of stuff from like black blues artists, you know.
Well, that was a lot of the first
without
album.
giving credit at all. Like Robert Johnson got completely like, I mean, he was dead obviously by the time when they were doing all that stuff, but you know, it was such a weird time. There wasn't that many bands back then. You know, there's 30,000 times more bands than there was back in 1968.
So true.
You know, but it's a cool song. Randy California, coincidentally, also was somebody that Hendrix tried to like employ in his band as a second guitar player.
Right.
Who was the guy that wrote a lot of the Spirit stuff.
Is that what brought you to the track?
Not really. Nathan, our drummer. Nathan, our drummer, actually had played it for me, and it reminded me. And I'm really into hip hop, so there's a sample on this album by an artist called Brother Ali.
Okay.
Who used that sample in his song. So it was like, oh, this song's great. I'd never actually heard the original until Nathan, our drummer, played it for us.
Cool.
So, and I was like, this is really dark and weird.
Yeah.
And we all agreed to do it, and Kayla wanted to do it too. So we decided to do it because, you know, back in the old days, people used to do covers all the time, and people don't anymore.
Sure.
You know.
So you were talking about hip hop. So what style of hip hop are you interested in?
I started listening to hip hop in the late '70s when like.
Rappers Delight. And
yeah, but they're kind of perpetrators. They were stealing from other people.
Yeah,
I didn't realize that until I was a little older. But I guess in the 80s, it was like Dougie Fresh and LL Cool J.
So were you on the East Coast?
No, I was on the West Coast.
Oh, okay. Because I was going to say, like, everything those people you're saying, like, I grew up in New York, so I would see, like, Run DMC, Lovebug Starski.
Those are some of my favorites. That's all the stuff that I'm just a music lover. Whether it's like, you know, I like everything from the Beach Boys to Slayer and everything in between. And, you know, I try not to like play too much hip hop to my bandmates when they're around, but you know, because it's like hit or miss with people. They either love it or hate it.
I know and I'll give it this. It's one genre that is continuing to change constantly.
Absolutely.
There's, you know, you could tell this is something from the 80s. This is something from the 90s, 2000s. And you know, there's something for everybody, basically.
Yeah. But definitely like the late 80s, early 90s gangsta rap, when they were really pushing the envelope, is what really opened my eyes to that.
Really?
And yeah, I mean, and lyrically, you know, there's a lot of bad shit happening in America at the time.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a lot of like minorities being oppressed, and I'm just, you know, I'm very much about equality and people getting along and actually sharing the earth. And to me, that's just like they were so angry and loud, like NWA and Ice-T in the early days, you know, and that whole crew and the whole like South Central posse of, you know, and then the East Coast stuff as well, you know, Public Enemy.
But it's legitimate anger. It's like, you know, look, there's a problem here. I don't know if you guys have noticed this. There's an actual problem.
Absolutely.
And they were ballsy enough to do something about it. I mean,
I think they changed a lot of people's minds about certain things. I mean, it was really hard, and they were banned and followed by the FBI. All these people were.
Yeah. Could you? Now,
I
can
can't
you imagine that actually happening now?
No,
I mean, like,
I'm privileged.
Well, you know
I'm
what?
a
Actually,
white guy, so I can't imagine how other people feel about that. But happening right now, it should happen right now. Again, there should be a second revolution. What's going on in this country,
absolutely.
especially?
And now I'm wondering. There was something I heard about. Well, I won't even go into it. Never mind. It's good. That'll put us down a different hole.
Right.
Let's go to a different track. How about "Burn You Down"?
You know, that started as, I'll tell you about the musically, and then we'll go to Kayla. Musically, it started out because Nate started listening to a band called Ghost.
Yeah,
a lot. And to me, it was one of those things. I came up with this riff, and it reminded me of Ghost, so I called it Ghost at first.
Okay.
You know, it was that kind of where the main note of usually when you play like a chord or something in a riff, there's a note and then a melody note. Well, the melody note goes first on this, and then the root note is second. So it's kind of it's a backwards Hendrix chord, for lack of better terms.
Okay.
That remind me of Ghost, and I really liked it. And with the time signature change, and it's not really anything I can really explain. It's just something that sounded cool to me, and I happened to lay it down, and then it developed into a different song.
That's cool.
But I think lyrically, it has way more meaning than musically.
Okay.
And I think Kayla would be able to explain that better than.
And Kayla, you know, I understand it's got to be really difficult if you're the lyricist. It's got to be hard. And I just want to preface this because I feel like I've made this mistake when I started this podcast in wanting to know so much about the lyrics when it could be a real private thing for a lot of people. So if you want to give a one-sentence answer or you want to give a full description, it's at your discretion. I just want to make sure you know that. Like, you don't have to say tons about it if you want to just say, yeah, it's about this. Move on. I'm totally cool with that.
No, yeah, you know what? They are very personal things.
Sure.
But I want people to know.
Okay, good.
What I, write about. So, yeah, Burn You Down for me is really about toxic masculinity, and just kind of from an outside perspective, like looking at, the male experience currently in the world, and a lot of what I've encountered.
Okay.
So yeah, that's...
Is it more what you encounter in personal life or in the musician's life?
In personal life.
Okay.
In personal life, and witnessing, people that I know going through that, and like, what does it mean to be a man, and how do I be masculine without, being an asshole? And
sure.
Yeah, and so it more focuses on the negative aspects of that, the toxic masculinity as
right.
opposed to non-toxic. Yeah.
I was talking to a band recently, and they turned me on to a new term. I hadn't heard of it before. It was, hold on a second, let me get this right, cis-heteronormativity. Oh. So it's basically whatever you look like you are, whether you identify as a male or female, the constructs don't have to be that anymore. And the simplest way to say it is like, females don't have to just wear pink.
Right.
Boys don't have to have blue. It's, it's bigger than that.
Yeah.
And it can always be bigger than that. What can you tell me about Hellfire?
Oh, that song was kind of Nate's idea. Oh man, what was it? What do you know about that?
I was Nate did this once before too, where, and I'm not trying to just say anything bad about Nate, but he wants to write stuff in a completely different manner than I do. He'd rather jam something out.
Okay.
And I'm the kind of guy that likes to go home and write stuff. So this was kind of like, more, for lack of better terms again, is more like a jam thing between us that I think actually, like, you and Justin had a lot to do with. Nate came up with the initial bass line on a Moog, one of those Taurus pedals, the big foot switch things that Lee used to use, and came up with this like just very, very, very basic idea based around doing something that was kind of like old school, like turn of the century, like 20s gospel kind of. I guess what he was talking about originally was the "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou," when the devilish women are coming out of the water and they're singing this song. And that's what he kind of described. And there's a million songs like that. I mean, I used to sing them in church when I was a kid. Like a hymn, like an old gospel hymn. Sure. And
that movie was filled with it, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So I think it was more of kind of like an era-specific thing that he was kind of conveying that he wanted us to try out.
Okay.
But what it ended up being was Kayla brought in a piano. Actually, I think he even redid some of the the Taurus pedal stuff too, didn't you? And then, but honestly, I think most of that song was written by Kayla and Justin, our bassist, who played guitar and came up with some pretty incredible stuff that I wasn't expecting, that I actually had to learn for the first time in this band.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, and lyrically, it's, again, her, so.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess I just tried to go off of that whole idea of a gospel hymn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess.
I guess that's about it.
I guess the lyrics really do speak for themselves in that one. I
Perfect.
mean, it's so straightforward. So.
Okay. And what can you tell me about Nighthawk?
Nighthawk. Nighthawk is a fucking epic journey.
Dun, 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 dun.
There's so much. That song is about so much for me. Yeah. So part of it is about my childhood trauma.
Okay.
And part of it is about my, that carrying forward into the relationships that I've experienced personally. And it's just kind of like, also there's a big part of it that is about taking the thoughts and ideas and beliefs that no longer serve you, and like burying them in the ground and doing away with them. So it's kind of me just giving myself a chance to exercise those demons.
Yeah, and almost have a rebirth.
Night.
Yeah. It you see those people in your life where over and over again they say, "Oh, I can't understand why I can't find the right woman or the right guy or whatever," but they're doing the same things in the relationships over and over, and there's no change.
Yeah.
And it's whatever it is, and you really got to sometimes step outside yourself, talk to somebody, get the help you need to say like, "Oh, this is why."
Yeah.
And that's a difficult struggle, and it's an extremely long song, so there's a lot of ground to cover there.
Yeah, there's a lot in there, and for me personally, I go a more spiritual approach in the song, because I really do believe that on an energetic level we will attract certain people to teach us lessons.
Absolutely.
In our life. So more so going in that direction, and it kind of does suck that we have childhood trauma, and if we don't deal with it, it will carry forward into our adult life and cause issues for us and pain for us until we address it.
Right.
And it kind of sucks that you have to go through bad shit just because somebody did something bad to you when you were a kid. But it's not fair, but it is our responsibility to kind of confront our demons and face them head on, and that's what I'm doing with that song.
Well, there's something important about continuing to better yourself and keep reflecting on yourself. And, I've had discussions with people where it's like something I did 5 years ago, something I did a year ago. And I'm like, I can't believe I did that. Like, what was I thinking? But you're growing, and you're now you're trying to understand, and it's a continuous process. To say that anybody could be perfect, it's bullshit. It's not possible.
Yeah.
But you can try to continue to improve. Yep. And I know that goes against Yoda, because he literally says, "Do or do not. There is no try." I'm going to say there is some trying and doing at the same time.
Talking about a fictional movie too.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Look, I'm hoping someday I can ride in an X-wing fighter. I mean, a TIE fighter's a little tighter.
Don't we all?
But personally, I think there's a weight limit, and I think I'm a little over it to fly that. You got to be a little kind of tiny guy.
Space, it's fine.
Hey, good point.
Yeah, there's no gravity, man.
Oh man, thank you for that. That makes me feel so much better. That's wonderful. So while you're on tour, what are you guys eating on the road?
We actually eat really well. I mean, we try to. I mean, once in a while you got to eat crow, but for the most part, we actually, we're not literal. We're in the desert and all, so I'm sure it can happen.
You are in the middle of the Sonoran
But
desert.
we use certain apps like Yelp and seek out food, and
sure.
We're all pretty conscious of that. Once in a while, we'll falter and have to just get whatever you can get in the middle of traveling. But for the most part, we try to make time to actually eat well.
Cool.
And we actually, we pack lots of water and fruit and granola bars and nuts and stuff like that. We'll actually go to Whole Foods once in a while and hit the salad bars.
Cool.
We ate at a massively good Ethiopian restaurant today. And Kayla's vegan, so which actually kind of enforces us all to kind of eat better, and which I have not a problem with, because I play another band where it's just we'll eat whatever kind of garbage is at a truck stop. Which
Waffle House to Loves to Pilots and
yeah, exactly, Loves and Pilots.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
That's always a wonderful place to eat.
Yeah, but we really do try to eat well when we can. It's not always possible, but we do.
What's your indulgence?
As far as
on the road.
Food
on the road.
I'm like the beer drinker on the road.
Okay.
I don't think anybody else really drinks in the band.
Okay.
You know, Justin might have one once in a while. I think he's had one beer this whole trip. Nate doesn't drink. Oh, actually, no. Nate's had some beer here and there too. But you know, my indulgence is eating like an In-N-Out burger when I'm in California once in a while. Like I do the stereotypical stuff, like, you know, I'll eat Southwestern food in Arizona, New Mexico. I'll eat the tacos in Southern California. You know what I mean?
When you're at In-N-Out, do you go animal style?
Yes. Oh, no. Actually, I do the double-double.
Double.
Yeah, with a Coke and fries. I mean, it's so American. And onions.
As
and raw
Kayla's
onions.
looking like,
and raw onions. I got to
Right.
have the raw. But, you know, in all fairness, so, you know, In-N-Out is a family-owned franchise. They have their own farms.
Right.
They actually recycle, you know. So they do an actual good job for fast food, which is kind of nice. There's only 2 fast food chains on the planet that do that.
what's the other?
Burgerville, which is like Northwest only.
Never heard of it. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe someday when I'm out there. Is it good?
Oh, it's great.
Okay.
You know, New York pizza, Chicago deep dish.
Gotcha.
In the South, it's barbecue.
Yep. And over
know.
there, it's Burgerville.
Yep.
Okay. Now on the other side of the coin, so are you vegetarian, vegan? What do you?
I'm vegan.
You're full vegan.
Yeah,
Really? Ovo, lacto, anything? Just full vegan?
just full vegan.
Wow, that must be hard on the road.
It's not, you know. Well, here's the thing. So you saw me with Helium Prime.
Yeah.
Like last year, with those guys, there was no consideration for, you know, where are we going to stop? You know, does everybody have something to eat?
Sure.
With these guys, there is. I
Right.
think a big part of it is that Nate's a booking agent and a band manager, and
Okay.
like, knows what he's doing. And you know, when I was out with those guys, we were just kind of off on our own, no tour manager, no anything. So
Sure.
we're a lot more organized. And yeah, I feel so lucky that I'm always taken into consideration, because it is difficult if you don't plan.
Right.
But like, I bring, you know, a bunch of vegan shit with me anyway, so I always find a way.
Cool.
Yeah.
And maybe here's a question: do you go online for recipes, or and what would you guide somebody towards a website or something so they can check out some good vegan recipes?
A website.
Or what would you suggest? How would you suggest if someone wants to become vegan?
Yeah, well, there's lots of, you know, research you can do out there on the internet. Recently, I came along a YouTuber called Joey Carbstrong, I think is his name.
Can you spell it?
Joey, J-O.
That part I can figure out.
Carbstrong, just like
Carb
the word
strong.
carb strong.
Okay.
Yeah, and he's like, I'm sure there are other vegan YouTubers, but he's like out there, you know, at protests, like
Sure.
debating with people and all that. And I
Right.
just found it interesting. But, you know, like there's documentaries too, like Cowspiracy,
Yes.
Forks Over Knives, all that stuff. You know, I would just say to do your research. There's no specific website. I mean, there's PETA, I guess, but
Sure.
yeah, it's just really about deciding for you what you think is moral.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah. And hey, more power to you. I mean, I've done. I lived in Florida, and I was in Palm Beach County, and there was a place called the Hippocrates Institute, and they were raw, full raw diet. And I got to tell you, although I apologize, I do like a burger. That raw diet made me feel amazing.
It does.
Between the wheatgrass juicing and just the whole lifestyle. I mean, it's a bit much. You know, you make a quote unquote lasagna and it takes you like 3 days because you're soaking the nuts, and then you know you're adding this layer and you got to let it sit and you got to add it, and it, like. But I remember I cut a piece like a square, and I'm like, I know, I'll just eat the whole damn tray like right now. And I had that square, and it was so unbelievably nutrient dense that I was full. I was like, oh my God, this could last for days.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe how insanely filling it was. So there's more power to it. You know, if anybody wants to check it out, check out a raw food diet or check out a vegan diet if you want some kind of change. So,
in all fairness, I haven't eaten a burger this whole trip so far.
Good.
so maybe there's a little influence going on.
I have not.
No,
No.
I think so.
Well, no, I'm a chef too, and I worked at a place where we did a lot of gluten-free and vegan stuff too. So
Perfect.
yeah, I don't do that anymore, but I actually know quite a bit about it. Charlie Trotter wrote a really good book called Raw. Mm-hmm. He's a Chicago chef.
Okay.
And it's full of recipes. I mean, that's a really cool place to get it.
Right.
Woody Harrelson's actually
he's pretty into it.
Vegan raw eater. Yeah, he's been doing it for years, like almost 20-something years now.
I've got some material by this lady. I think her name is Alissa Cohen.
Okay.
And then there's, I've got a couple of raw food books, and I go back and forth.
Yeah.
I figure if I had a burger, I'll have a couple of raw meals, or and I'll kind of balance it out or whatever.
I could live on fish the rest of my life. I'm like a pescatarian. I could be a pescatarian, and get rid of all the other stuff. I don't need red meat or beef,
right?
Or pork. Or chicken. Chicken's kind of the grossest, actually.
Yeah. Okay. Is it texturally?
It's
or?
just from working around it for almost 3 decades in the food industry. Yeah.
Right.
It's like working around it for almost 3 decades in the food industry. Yeah.
So wow.
It's weird.
So
weird.
Chef and
not
band.
Anymore. I'm just a musician at this point.
No, not just.
I am a
You
musician.
are a musician.
Yes. That's what I do, and I'm glad to be doing it. After working so hard at it and just doing it.
Outstanding. Well, listen, I thank you both so much for your time. I know it's precious, and I know you're on the road, and I know you got to get ready.
Yep.
One quick question for you is, what do you do to warm up as a vocal?
Oh, well, so I'm a voice teacher, and I just do what I give my students.
Right.
I just do my, I do scales.
Mm-hmm.
I create all kinds of different vocal warm-ups depending on what your voice needs.
Right.
And actually recently before this tour, I got a little bit of my left vocal cord actually wasn't phonating.
Right.
Because I had actually strained it, pushed it too hard.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was funny. I walked into the ENT, the ear, nose, and throat doctor, and I got scoped. They put a camera down your nose
Sure.
and look at your vocal cords. And he was like, yeah, your left vocal cord isn't moving. It was basically paralyzed. And he said, you need to do these breathing exercises 3 times a day.
Okay.
And they turned out to be the exact same breathing exercises that I give my students.
Wow, awesome.
Yeah. So I do breathing exercises. I do scales. I breathe in steam to get that moisture on the vocal cords, keep them lubricated.
Okay.
And I refrain from caffeine and anything that could dry the throat out, like wine.
Right.
You just have to be really careful, especially when you're doing this kind of music,
Right.
where there's, screaming and rasp and clean vocals and operatic. When you're doing everything, you just have to really work hard to keep it in shape.
It's a big mix.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate that.
Thanks.
And to the both of you, a huge thanks, and I wish you so much success on this tour and success forever after. Thank you both so much.
Awesome. Thank you.
I was playing the tracks underneath as they were talking about the music, and I've tried to do that with a few podcasts. Like it? Yes? No? Please message me, doomtunepodcast@gmail.com. And right now, I think we'll play a track, and this is Witch Mountain with Burn You Down. Next up is a band called the Fuzz Brothers, and they're from Bari, B-A-R-I. Did I get that right? Is that in Italy? Well, either way, they sent me a track to listen to from their release Royal Jelly, and yeah, it's very interesting. It's like the way they list it, it's like psycho hysteria, stoner alternative dub. But let's hear the track and let me know what you think of it. This is the Fuzz Brothers with Take a Loose Soul. Thanks as always for hanging out towards the end. It's doomtombpodcast@gmail.com. Follow us on social media at doomtombpodcast. Check us out on Instagram, Facebook. You'll see what shows we're going to. Hopefully, I can grab an interview here or there. It gives you a little hint as to who might be coming up on the podcast, and we have a bunch of them coming up. I'm going to try to even get another one out this week. Just clear out a bunch because I'm getting kind of backlogged. So I appreciate all the help that everybody's been giving me, especially Matt Bacon from Dropout Media. Huge thanks to him and everybody else that has helped me to grant some interviews and get some really quality guests, and I hope it really continues. So until that time, the next time, the in-between time, enjoy yourselves, keep going to the shows, enjoy just seeing some great, great music, buy some band merch every once in a while, and don't forget to stay heavy.